Good evening, friends. Thank you for being here tonight. We gather at the threshold of these 3 holy days referred to in ancient tradition as the Triduum, the 3 days where we observe Christ's passion into Easter Sunday. We come here tonight to gather around a table and remember that Last Supper that Jesus had with his disciples and how it portended so much of what was to come on the day that followed and on that Sunday morning. So we enter this story with hearts both full and quivering, knowing that there is so much love here, and yet so much love that bravely faced so much suffering. We know that both those things are true in our own world as well. So we come to join Jesus to bring the passion of our world, the passion of our lives to his, and know that he meets us in our own. Our service will start with the celebration of Maunday Thursday, and at the conclusion of our communion service, we move into a time of worship that is referred to as a tenebrae service. And tenebrae is a Latin word for shadows. And we will observe and hear the words of Christ's passion all the way through his crucifixion as Maunday Thursday gives way to Good Friday. But we begin with the invitation to come to the table that is richly laid by the love of God. Our opening hymn is number 227, Christ at Table There with Friends. If you're comfortable standing, I invite you to rise, and we will be masking to sing tonight. May your Spirit lead us in prayer and remembrance. Amen. Please be seated. You've probably heard that the word Maunday is not a variation on the word Monday, as maybe we as children or our own children mistook it. But it is an abbreviation of the Latin word mandatum, which means commandment. And Jesus, sitting at table, commanded those who would follow him to do this in remembrance of me. And so we follow that commandment, that mandatum, and come together on Maunday Thursday to do this in remembrance of him. And the this of which he speaks is so multi-layered and multifaceted. Yes, it's sharing bread and sharing wine. Yes, it's sitting at a table with friends, knowing that some are faithful and some are fickle, and yet all are welcome. Yes, it is taking a towel and a basin and washing feet. Yes, it is taking that cup and remembering that it is costly. It is like the blood of Christ, this fellowship, this faith we share. Taking that bread and saying, yes, yes, to be whole, we have to risk being broken. And we remember his brokenness in this meal. And this, that we are commanded to observe, is to live like Jesus, to give our love to the world in such a way that we become like him. I saw a little line this week as I was reading and preparing, a picture that is often portrayed as an illustration of Christ's love. And it is the icon or the faith-filled painting of Jesus offering his heart to the world. The icon is the Sacred Heart. And it's one of those pictures that sometimes we Protestants have a hard time understanding. It is the living, human, anatomical heart in his hands, offering it to the world. In the words of Richard Rohr, it makes terrible art, but wonderful theology. Jesus offers the world his heart, knowing that the world can break it. We too are called to offer the world our heart, knowing that it may be broken, because love demands risk. Love demands sacrifice. Love demands vulnerability. Sitting at a table with those who adore and those who resent us. Taking off our apron and washing the feet of all. So we come together tonight to remember and to do this, all of this, every part of this in remembrance of him. Amen. join me in our responsive prayer of communion. It is the story of God's love that brings us here tonight. God's life poured out for love of us, a world of meaning spoken in the language of bread and cup. Come join this feast of love and give thanks. You have claimed us as your own, and when we lose our way, you keep welcoming us back. You prepare a table for us, offering us your very self, so that we may be filled, forgiven, healed, and blessed.
We proclaim all heaven and earth, holiness, power, and glory are yours.
Lord Jesus Christ, for us you lived, died, and rose again. You are present with us now, and we have nothing to offer you but ourselves. Send your Holy Spirit upon this bread and cup, and make them more than food and drink.
Send your Holy Spirit upon us, that we may become more food, more like you, loving and caring for the world, that your kingdom comes among us.
The gifts of God are for the people of God. Take them in remembrance that Christ lived and died for you, and feed on him in your hearts by faith with thanksgiving. We remember how Jesus took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to his friends and said, "Take and eat, this is my body given for you." And how after supper he took the cup, offered thanks over it, and gave it to his friends, saying, "Drink from this, all of you, for this is my blood shed for you and for the many, for the forgiveness of sin." So we gather here in remembrance of him, breaking the bread, sharing the cup, and joining the world in the celebration of love. These gifts are for us. Come, let us partake in the feast of grace. Ministering to you in his name, we offer you now. blood of Christ, the cup of salvation. Receive it with joy. Let's join together in our unison prayer of thanksgiving. Loving God, we give you thanks for serving us again with your grace, as simple as sharing bread, as holy as sharing love. Amen.
Then Jesus went with them to the place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "Am I deeply grieved, even to death? Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners."
Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness. According to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions.
Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sins are ever before me.
Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden parts you shall make me to know wisdom.
Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me.
Cast me not from your presence, and take not your Holy Holy Spirit from heaven.
While he was still speaking, Judah, one of the 12, arrived with him, and a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and held hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he at once sent me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Chasten me in your displeasure.
Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak.
O
Lord,
heal
me
in
in
my
my
distress.
distress.
For in death there is no remembrance of you. In the grave, who shall give you thanks?
The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord will receive my prayer.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus so that they might put him to death, but they found none. Though many false witnesses came forward, at least 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days.'" The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Hide not your face from me the days when I am in trouble. Incline your ear unto me when I call.
My days are like a shadow that wanes, and I am withered like the grass.
But you, O Lord, shall endure forever, and your remembrance unto all generations.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself.
Transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are concealed.
Blessed are they unto whom the Lord punishes not wickedness, and in whose spirit there is no deceit.
The Lord is our hiding place. He shall protect us from trouble. He shall surround us with songs of deliverance.
Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but those who trust in the Lord shall receive mercy.
That same day, Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate then called together the chief priests, the elders, the leaders, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was perverting the people, and here I have examined him in your presence, and have not found this man guilty of any of your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent back to us. Indeed, he has done nothing to deserve death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." Then they all shouted out together, "Away with this fellow, release Barabbas for us." This was a man who had been put in prison for an insurrection that had taken place in the city and for murder. Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "Why? What evil has he done? I have found in him no ground for the sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and then release him." But they kept urgently demanding with loud shouts that he should be crucified, and their voice prevailed. So Pilate gave his verdict that their demand should be granted. He released the man they asked for, the one who had been put in prison for insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as he wished.
Supplications. In your faithfulness and in your righteousness answer.
Enter not into judgment with your servant, for in your sight shall no man living be justified.
Deliver me, O Lord, from my enemies, for I fly unto you for safety.
Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Your spirit is good. Lead me into the land of righteousness.
As they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of the people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, They crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing.
Have gone over my head. They weigh like a burden too heavy for me. I am utterly bowed down and prostrate. All the day long I go around mourning. I am utterly spent and crushed. I groan because of the tumult of my heart. My heart throbs. My strength fails me. As for the light of my eyes, it is also gone from me. Do not forsake me, O Lord. Oh my God, do not be far from me.
One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve from our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent."
In the words of our Savior, "My Father, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen." The light came into the world to reveal the grace of God. The light shines in the darkness and will not be overcome. Let us go this night to hold in our hearts the light of Christ that shines in the midst of every darkness, holding close to our very selves the love that will never let us go, to the cross and beyond. We depart tonight in silence.